Hello and welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for October of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas, and I'm in San Francisco, California.
Let's take a look at what's happening this month. Well, Gemini, I've got good news about Pluto this month. Pluto has been traveling along through Capricorn for about 15 years. This is a very slow-moving planet, and he tends to bring transformation and metamorphosis, and really presents us with very heavy transits, which is part of why I don't talk about him very much, because he moves so very slowly. He's been passing along through your 8th house for a very long time, bringing you transformations and metamorphoses of a very pure and alchemical kind. Some of them may even have been sexual or shown up in your most intimate relationships. This has definitely been a time period in which your relationships could become more intimate, especially if you have been peeling away the outer layers and revealing the truth underneath. So Pluto's passage has been long and slow through your 8th house, but he's about to make a change. He's been in Capricorn, as I said, for about 15 years, but this month he's going to pivot from retrograde to direct and finish out Capricorn and move on into Aquarius, where he will be traveling through your 9th house for about 20 years and bringing his themes of transformation and metamorphosis into a new arena. But we'll talk about that when it arrives. But what I want to say about Pluto is that when Pluto turns direct, you can get this feeling that you have arrived at the deepest place in your yearly metamorphosis, and that you're ready to get closure with it. You've ferreted out that, nugget of pain or trauma from the past, and you've brought it to the surface. You've purged it, washed yourself clean, and you're ready to go back to life as usual. And so this is the beginning of what will be unfolding in the next couple of months through year end, which is a final releasing and letting go, especially in Pluto's Capricorn themes, any old traumas around authority, hierarchy, meaning your own authority as well as your experience of other people's authority. And getting to closure about these things, I think, is going to feel pretty good, and then putting them behind you really forever. Next thing I want to talk about is Juno. She is right down here in your 3rd house. Juno is a very collaborative planet. She's actually an asteroid in the asteroid belt. She's all about partnership. She's also a social leader. She's been traveling through your 3rd house since last month. And this is a very social place to have Juno. It's really good to have conversations and talk actually about how you communicate with your partner while Juno is passing through your 3rd house. Juno is, very much about partnership. And when traveling through the house of communication, she can usefully draw attention to communication itself, not just have conversations, which is something that might happen every day with your partner, but to actually look at how you have those conversations and to make some positive changes. Like maybe you and your partner don't have a very even conversational back and forth. Maybe one of you talks a lot more and the other listens more. Maybe the person who doesn't talk very much could say more about what's really going on for them. Maybe the person who doesn't listen much could do more listening. It might bring it into a better balance, and this is a really good transit for that kind of examination and practice. Juno is moving on into the 4th house mid-month on the 17th. Right there. And Juno is pretty happy in the 4th house because this is a house of home and family, domestic life, heritage, and roots. And Juno, being the partner and also the social leader, might want to do some things with family, host family events, do some more networking and connecting among family members, help people to get along, do some negotiation and mediation, or just sit back and enjoy home life while Juno is passing through the fourth house, and she's going to be here through the end of November. Last thing I want to speak to is Ceres. Ceres is over here in your sixth house, traveling through this house all month. Ceres is all about food, body, and money, the things that connect us to the physical world. Wherever she goes, you want to show good stewardship and bring a very practical approach. Ceres is quite comfortable in the sixth house because both of these have to do with health. Ceres has to do with how do you maintain your body? How do you eat? Could you eat better for your health and longevity? How do you run your habits? And the sixth house is very aligned with these themes because the sixth house is a house of health and also a house of systems, the systems that help life to run. So another thing that's really useful to do while Ceres is passing along through your sixth house is to bring Ceres' organizational and stabilizing abilities into the workplace, because the sixth house is a house of work. It's a house of the job and how you organize things on the job, your calendar, your do list, your systems of keeping things running at work. Ceres can really help you with that by pressing you to stabilize yourself and to regularize your habits. So that can be super useful. Julia, what's up with Venus, Mars, and Mercury for the Geminis out there?
Yeah, well, hey there, Gemini. Venus and Mercury are both direct this month as opposed to last month when they were retrograde. So we're all happy about that. Let's start with Venus, the planet of beauty and pleasure, who begins this month in your third house. This house rules your siblings. It rules your neighbors and neighborhood and community. Venus in the third is great for a little pleasure trip. If you can do that for the first week of the month, maybe go out to the local beach or rent an Airbnb. And it's also a nice time to get along well with your siblings, especially if you guys have had issues in the past. This is a good time to patch things up. Then by October 8th, Venus goes into your fourth house of family and home. She likes this house because Venus just wants to relate. She's a very peaceful planet, and who doesn't want to have some peace at home? Now, Venus in the fourth can be a wonderful time for getting along well with your parents or the people you live with. And a wonderful use of this transit is to try to do something to make your home more beautiful, more pleasurable, or more comfortable somehow. Maybe you want to invite friends over to eat. Maybe you want to redecorate a room. All that is very good with Venus in the fourth. Now let's talk a little bit about Mars. Mars is a much different planet. It's the planet of action and adventure, but it's also the planet of flare-ups too. So Mars starts the month in your fifth house of children. If you do have any children, you guys might be butting heads a lot more than usual. The fifth house also represents dating, maybe not the best time, best month for dating. Venus in the fourth doesn't really want to get out of the house. And then Mars in the fifth might make you very annoyed or frustrated with the people you are dating. But dating will be better next month when Venus is in your fifth. And we'll get to that next month, Gemini. Mars in the fifth can be great for getting a lot of energy out through sports, through any games, or even creative stuff. Then by the 11th, Mars enters your sixth house. This is a house of workplace. It's a house of organization. It's a house of health. Mars in the sixth is a great time to start a health routine or put some energy towards some rituals in your life, whether that's eating well, doing yoga, meditating. It could be any type of ritual. Anything that also supports your health could be great. Mars in the sixth house can mean you put a lot of energy at the workplace, but it can also mean you run into flare-ups too at the workplace as well. So try to get some order in your life with Mars in the sixth house, but try also not to butt heads with the people you work with as well. Now, finally, Mercury starts off the month in your fourth house. This is a planet that represents your mind, Gemini. It's actually your ruling planet because you are such a mentally oriented person. Mercury in the fourth house for the first few days of the month means that your mind will be really on your home, maybe thinking about your home place, like what you want to do to strategize around anything domestic. Maybe you're communicating more with your family or the people you live with. Then by the fourth, Mercury goes into your fifth house. Again, this is a house of children, dating, creativity, games. Mercury loves games. So you might be really focused on just having fun and games instead of doing any actual work, which can sort of be difficult when you have a lot of stuff going on in the fifth house. Mercury in the fifth might mean that you're communicating a lot more with your children, connecting a lot more with them. Then by the 19th, Mercury exactly conjoins the sun while direct. We call that Greater Epiphany Day, and it's a time of insights and revelations. So since this is happening in your fifth house, expect around October 19th to get some clarity, maybe about children in your life. Maybe you're thinking, do I want another kid? Do I want children? Or something having to do with the child you already have. There could also be some clarity about dating in your life. Maybe you're getting an aha moment about someone you're dating, like, I got to move on, or, I want to move things a little further ahead with this person. Or this could also involve any creative projects or games that you are part of too, this Greater Epiphany Day.
Hi, Jamie here. Horoscopes and moon videos are fun, but they don't go very deep, really. If you want depth and personal clues, you'll want to join our monthly live workshop where you can talk with a real astrologer about your own chart. This month's topic is undergoing Pluto transformations with power and grace. Because Pluto transits feel like a long, dark night of the soul, and psychological death and rebirth is hard for all of us. In the workshop, I'll explain how to navigate these biggest of all life's changes smoothly. This workshop is expressly for our Demigod Patreon subscribers who pay only $15 a month for access to live events like this one. It's easy to sign up at the Patreon link in the description below. I'd love to see you there. Now let's get back to the video. Well, eclipse season has arrived. It happens about every 6 months, and eclipses will come in batches, usually 2 of them, spaced 2 weeks apart and built on new and full moons. In this particular month, we have a solar eclipse in Libra happening on the 14th. Now, eclipses show us our shadow. They are inherently uncomfortable, and sometimes stuff comes up that we just really don't want to look at, and that we would tend to run away from or squash down so that we don't have to look at it. But during eclipse, it just kind of ends up in your face. A solar eclipse, which is when the sun and the moon are together forming a new moon, which has become an eclipse. A solar eclipse is usually a time when you are shown your shadow by virtue of your behavior. And so you got to watch out for this, especially when it lands in the 5th house, as it's doing in your case, Gemini, because this is a house of ego. This is a house of self and selfhood. This is a house of your personal brand. And there's a lot of activity in this house, especially earlier in the month. And so during this part of the month, you might be very much like in a playful mode. You may be wanting to just have fun and kind of disregarding other people and their feelings and their needs. But the funny thing about this eclipse is that we're calling it Stop Placating, Honesty Heals. And that's because this eclipse happening in Libra is, and also being tied to the South Node, is really about releasing bad old habits around being overly nice, being like kind of fake, maybe even manipulative, just trying to please people and not being clear about what you want. So, and Gemini, your sign is known as the silver-tongued sign. So don't beware of bad behavior around like overusing your capacity to butter people up during this eclipse. So we're calling this Stop Placating, Honesty Heals. And the reason for that is that the North Node in this eclipse is in Aries and Chiron is with it. And so this is an occasion where you might find yourself just behaving in some old way. Maybe you haven't even behaved that way in a long time, but you're like recognizing, oh, wow, it's that stuff I used to do where I used to just butter people up and like manipulate them. And I'm so not committed to being that way anymore. And then you would want to lean into this Chiron and North node and be more honest, direct, and forthright. And that is the high road to take out of this eclipse for sure. Now, the second eclipse of the month is happening on October 28th, just about 2 weeks later. And it is a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So at this point, the sun has moved on into Scorpio and the moon has moved over into Taurus, but it's still an eclipse. It's just an eclipse built on a full moon. We have the south node with the sun. This is the releasing end of the eclipse. And the north node is with the moon. And the moon being the eclipsed planet, because the north node is with it, this is an initializing eclipse. So this is the kind of eclipse where you want to lean into the good behavior, lean into the pro-evolutionary behavior, focus more on that and how you want things to be in the future, and less on releasing stuff from the past, which is what the north node is, the south node is good for. So this particular one, we're calling this release ties, lean into independence. It's set along a financial axis of signs. Taurus has to do very much with one's own money and one's own financial autonomy and independence and self-reliance. Whereas Scorpio has to do with the ways and the places in life where we merge our monies with somebody else, maybe in a marriage, or maybe in a joint lease, or debt of some kind, or where we pool our money with larger entities such as investments or taxes or insurance. So this is a very financial axis of signs. The sun in Scorpio being with the south node does suggest it's time to release and let go of old forms of financial dependency. Whereas the moon in Taurus with the north node suggests it's time instead to lean into new forms of financial independence and to find our way to some stability and self-sufficiency in this way. Now, because this is a lunar eclipse, it's going to be emotional. It's going to stir up a lot of feelings. It's not as obvious as a solar eclipse. It doesn't show up in your behavior, but you might find there are a lot of feelings being stirred up. Now, the fact that this moon lands in your 12th house does suggest that you may find that during this eclipse, you're quite sensitive to what other people are feeling around you in the environments that you generally hang out in, whether that's your home or your parents' house or your workplace or your neighbor's house or your best friend's house. Like in those environments, wherever you are on October 28th, you're likely to be really catching the vibes. It might even make you tired, like you want to go home and you're feeling drained and you just kind of want to go to sleep. But leaning into the good feeling of independence is really what this eclipse is all about. And it might show you your shadow, but the more that you lean into autonomy and self-reliance, especially around money, the better you're going to feel under this eclipse. The last thing I want to tell you about is the seasonal change, which is coming on October 23rd, and that features the sun in entering into the 6th house and traveling along through the sign of Scorpio for 30 days. And it's part of this month's general migration from your 5th house into your 6th house, because earlier in the month, we have lots of planets clustered here in your 5th house. And then towards the end of the month, we see that they have gathered in your 6th house. And so that 5th house emphasis at the beginning of the month was very much on oneself, on play and activities, on creativity, on like beefing up your image in the world, like maybe improving your social media profile in some way that you feel reflects who you really are. And so those things may appeal more as the fifth house is very full. But here in the latter part of the month, the sixth house is very full, which means that your attention tends to leave the arena of play and enter into the arena of work. This is the house of work, health, and service, and personal organization. So you may find yourself kind of leaning into some more, a more of a perfectionistic, hardworking, and, the desire to be useful. These kinds of thoughts are going to preoccupy you more in the later part of the month. Now, wherever the sun goes, we want to shine the light of our high quality attention. Attention is like sunlight. When you spread it around, things can grow, things can expand, things can thrive and flourish. And wherever the sun goes in your chart, you want to shed the high quality attention in that arena. And this means in the workplace. So bring your most charismatic and shiny self to work, and you might get noticed. And that could be a wonderful thing. If you want to shine at work and you're ready to shine at work, this is a good month to do it. But also remember that one of the most powerful things that royalty can do is to not just take attention from the group, but to also spread that attention around. And so this is a really good time for putting high quality attention on people that you work with or projects that you're doing so that things can thrive and flourish all around you in the workplace. The sun will be traveling through this house for about 30 days, starting October 23rd. And this is really the best time for those kinds of approaches.
Well, that's all for today. If you love Pandora Astrology's free and informative horoscopes, then please do hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share our horoscopes with your friends.
You can find out so much more about how this month's transits affect you in very personal timing in our monthly Patreon workshops. Find the link in the description below to get started. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos.
Bye-bye.